Maya Chen had always been the kind of person who could trip over her own shadow and somehow make it look endearing. At 25, she worked as a junior graphic designer at a small advertising agency, lived in a cramped studio apartment with a plant she'd somehow managed to keep alive for 3 months, and had a talent for finding herself in the most embarrassing situations imaginable. This particular Tuesday morning started like any other disaster waiting to happen. Maya's alarm clock had decided to take a sick day, leaving her to wake up naturally at 8:30 when she was supposed to be at work by 9. She'd thrown on the first clean clothes she could find, a slightly wrinkled yellow dress that made her look like a walking sunflower, and mismatched shoes because, apparently, her brain hadn't fully booted up yet. "Come on, Maya, you can do this," she muttered to herself, practically jogging down the sidewalk while trying to apply mascara using her phone's camera as a mirror. "Just get to Brew and Beans, grab your usual, and maybe Mr. Peterson won't notice you're late again." But Maya Chen and smooth mornings went together about as well as oil and water. She burst through the doors of Brew and Beans like she was being chased by a pack of wild accountants, her oversized purse swinging dangerously as she tried to stuff her makeup back inside. The coffee shop was unusually crowded for a Tuesday, filled with people in expensive suits talking in hushed, important-sounding tones. "Large vanilla latte with extra foam, please," Maya called out breathlessly to Jake, the barista who'd grown accustomed to her morning chaos. "And maybe throw in a muffin. Actually, make it 2 muffins. Today feels like a 2-muffin kind of disaster." Jake grinned and started working on her order, while Maya fidgeted in line, checking her phone and doing that little dance people do when they're trying to convince themselves they're not really that late. She was so focused on mentally rehearsing her apology to Mr. Peterson that she didn't notice the man standing directly behind her, until she took a step back and crashed into what felt like a very expensive, very solid wall. The collision sent her purse flying, its contents scattering across the floor like confetti at the world's most embarrassing party. Lip gloss, loose change, at least 14 pens that definitely didn't work, a small cactus in a pot, because who doesn't carry emergency plants, and what appeared to be a sandwich from last week all went sliding across the polished floor. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Maya spun around, nearly losing her balance in the process, and found herself staring up at the most gorgeous man she'd ever seen outside of a magazine. Tall dark hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her rent, and eyes so green they made her forget how to form coherent sentences. The man, who was clearly someone important based on the way everyone else in the coffee shop had suddenly gone quiet, looked down at the chaos around his feet with an expression that was equal parts amused and bewildered. "Is that a cactus?" he asked, his voice smooth and rich like really good chocolate. Maya's brain decided this was the perfect time to go completely offline. "Yes, well, no, I mean, yes, it's a cactus, but no, I don't normally carry cacti. Her name is Spike, and she's my office plant, but I was taking her to work because my apartment has terrible light, and she's been looking a little droopy lately, and I thought maybe—" She realized she was rambling and clamped her mouth shut so hard her teeth clicked. The man bent down and carefully picked up the small cactus, examining it with the seriousness usually reserved for important business documents. "She does look a bit droopy. You're making fun of me." Maya dropped to her knees and started frantically gathering her scattered belongings, her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, I know this is ridiculous. I'm ridiculous. I'll just—" "Actually, I wasn't." He crouched down beside her, still holding Spike. "I have a rooftop garden. Succulents can be tricky. They need bright, indirect sunlight and very little water. Most people kill them with kindness." Maya looked up at him, surprised. "Really? Really? Though I have to ask, do you always carry emergency plants?" Before Maya could answer, Jake called out from behind the counter, "Maya, large vanilla latte with extra foam." She scrambled to her feet, stuffing the last of her belongings back into her purse. "That's me. Thank you for helping with my explosion." The man stood as well, still holding her cactus. "I'm Adrian, by the way, Adrian Blackwood." Maya nearly choked on her own spit. Adrian Blackwood, as in Blackwood Industries, as in the billionaire heir whose face had been on the cover of Forbes magazine last month, as in the man she'd just assaulted with her purse contents. "Oh no," she whispered. then clapped a hand over her mouth because apparently she'd said that out loud. Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Oh no. You're Adrian Blackwood, like the Adrian Blackwood, and with my Cactus, and you probably have very important billionaire things to do, and I—" She reached for Spike, but Adrian held the plant just out of reach. "What's your name?" Maya Chen. I'm nobody special. Well, I mean, I'm special to my mom and my plants, but not special, you know? Not billionaire special. More like trips over flat surfaces special." Adrian's lips twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. Maya Chen, who carries emergency cacti and makes sure her mother knows she's special. "Maya," Jake called again, more insistent this time, "your latte's getting cold." She looked between Adrian and the counter, clearly torn between retrieving her caffeine lifeline and continuing what was possibly the most embarrassing conversation of her life. "Go get your coffee," Adrian said, finally handing over Spike. "But Maya?" "Yeah?" "I hope you and Spike have a better rest of your day." Maya practically floated to the counter, grabbed her latte, and was halfway to the door before she realized she'd forgotten her muffins. When she turned back, Adrian was still watching her, talking quietly on his phone. Their eyes met across the crowded coffee shop, and for a moment, Maya forgot about being late, forgot about her mismatched shoes, forgot about everything except those impossibly green eyes. Then she walked straight into the glass door. The entire coffee shop went silent. Maya stood there for a moment, her face pressed against the glass, before slowly pushing the door handle and stumbling outside. She could hear muffled laughter from inside, and she was pretty sure she'd just provided Adrian Blackwood with enough embarrassing Maya Chen stories to last a lifetime. What she didn't know was that Adrian was still standing by the counter, watching her through the window as she hurried down the street, and for the first time in years, he was genuinely smiling. "Sir," his assistant Marcus approached cautiously. "The board meeting?" "Postpone it," Adrian said, still watching Maya's retreating figure. "Actually, no. Cancel it entirely." "Cancel it, sir?" "I have something more important to do." Adrian pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found what he was looking for. "Get me everything you can find on Maya Chen. She works at a small advertising agency, carries emergency plants, and just became the most interesting person I've met in 10 years. Marcus looked confused but nodded. "Of course, sir. Anything specific you need to know?" Adrian thought about Maya's mortified expression when she'd realized who he was, the way she'd rambled about her cactus, how she'd walked into a glass door and somehow made it look endearing. "Everything," he said. "I want to know everything." 3 days later, Maya was having what could generously be called a week. First, there had been the incident at Brew and Beans, which she'd replayed in her mind approximately 400 times, each replay somehow more embarrassing than the last. Then, her boss, Mr. Peterson, had assigned her to work on their biggest client pitch in years, a campaign for some luxury resort company she'd never heard of. And now, sitting in the pristinely white conference room of Sterling & Associates, surrounded by her more competent colleagues, Maya was trying very hard not to drop her presentation materials, while also trying not to think about how Adrian Blackwood's eyes had crinkled at the corners when he'd almost smiled. "All right, people," Mr. Peterson announced, checking his watch. "The client should be here any minute. This is big for us. Blackwood Industries doesn't usually work with smaller agencies, but apparently someone specifically requested us." Maya's hand froze halfway to her water glass. "Did you say Blackwood Industries?" "Yes, Maya. Try to keep up. They're launching a new luxury resort chain and they want fresh, innovative ideas. This could make our careers if we don't screw it up." His eyes landed meaningfully on Maya. "So let's not screw it up." The door opened and Marcus, whom Maya didn't recognize, stepped inside. "Good morning, everyone. Mr. Blackwood will be with you momentarily. He's just finishing up a call." Maya's stomach dropped somewhere around her ankles. This couldn't be happening. This absolutely could not be happening. But of course it was happening because Maya Chen's life was apparently a romantic comedy written by someone with a very twisted sense of humor. Adrian walked into the room, and Maya actually felt her brain short-circuit. He was wearing a different suit, navy this time, but he still looked like he'd stepped off the cover of a magazine. His eyes swept the room, pausing briefly on each person before landing on Maya. "Good morning," he said to the group, though his gaze remained fixed on Maya's increasingly red face. "I'm Adrian Blackwood. I'm looking forward to seeing what Sterling and Associates has prepared for us." Mr. Peterson launched into his usual welcome speech, introducing the team and outlining their approach. Maya tried to focus on his words, but all she could think about was the fact that Adrian Blackwood was sitting directly across from her, and every time she looked up, he seemed to be looking right at her. "Maya will be presenting our creative concepts," Mr. Peterson announced, and Maya felt her soul leave her body. "Maya," Adrian repeated, as if testing the name. "How interesting." She stood up on legs that felt like overcooked spaghetti and managed to make it to the front of the room without falling down. Small victories. Her presentation materials were neatly organized, her concepts were solid, and she'd practiced her pitch at least 20 times in the mirror. Everything was going to be fine. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood. I mean, everyone. Good morning, everyone." Maya cleared her throat. "Today I'll be presenting our vision for the Blackwood Luxury Resort campaign, focusing on authentic experiences and genuine connection with—" She pressed the button on her laptop to advance to the next slide, but instead of her carefully prepared presentation, the screen filled with a photo of Spike the cactus sitting on her kitchen windowsill. Maya stared at the screen in horror. In her nervousness, she'd opened the wrong PowerPoint file, the one she'd made for her plant care research. That's not... She frantically clicked through the slides, but it only got worse. Pictures of various houseplants, a slide titled, "Why Succulents Are Better Than Boyfriends," and finally, a photo she'd taken of herself making an exaggerated, sad face next to a wilted fern. The room was completely silent. Maya could feel everyone staring at her, could sense Mr. Peterson's rising blood pressure, could practically hear her career circling the drain. And then Adrian started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, not a condescending snort, but genuine, warm laughter that filled the entire room. "Is this the same Spike from the coffee shop?" Maya looked at the screen, then at Adrian, then at her mortified colleagues. Yes, but this isn't... I mean, I have the real presentation, She took a deep breath. "You know what? Yes, that's Spike. And that slide is absolutely correct. Succulents are better than boyfriends. They're low maintenance, they don't leave dishes in the sink, and they'll never break your heart by choosing someone else." "What else makes them superior partners?" Adrian asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. Maya blinked, surprised by the question. "Well, they're excellent listeners, very supportive, and if you're having a bad day, their mere presence can improve your mood. Plus, they're great wingmen. I mean, look how we met. Through a cactus collision." "Exactly. Spike is basically a tiny green matchmaker." The room had relaxed considerably, and Maya realized that somehow her epic presentation fail had turned into an actual conversation. She closed her laptop and sat on the edge of the conference table, suddenly feeling more like herself. "But in all seriousness," she said, "what I was trying to say about authentic experiences, that's what people really want from a luxury resort. Not just expensive sheets and overpriced cocktails, but genuine moments. The kind of memories that make you smile when you're stuck in traffic 6 months later." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. "What kind of memories?" "Small ones mostly, like discovering a tiny garden hidden behind the spa, or having the chef teach you how to make something you've never tried before, or finding a quiet spot where you can sit with your coffee and watch the sunrise without feeling like you need to take a perfect Instagram photo of it." She was warming up now, her nerves forgotten. Luxury isn't about showing off how much money you can spend. It's about having the space and time to remember what makes you happy. When Maya finished talking, the room was quiet again, but this time it felt different. Adrian was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read, and Mr. Peterson looked like he couldn't decide whether to fire her or promote her. "Miss Chen," Adrian said finally, "that was the most refreshing presentation I've heard in years, even though it was mostly pictures of my plants. Especially because it was mostly pictures of your plants." Adrian stood up. "I'd like to discuss this project further. Are you free for dinner tomorrow night?" Maya's brain immediately went into panic mode. Dinner? Like a business dinner with the team? Actually, I was thinking just the two of us. There's a restaurant I'd like to try. It has an excellent rooftop garden. The implications of Adrian Blackwood asking her to dinner hit Maya like a freight train. This was either the best thing that had ever happened to her, or she was about to become the subject of some very uncomfortable office gossip. She looked around the room at her colleagues, who were all staring at her with expressions ranging from amazed to envious. Yes, I mean, for business, obviously, because we're business people. Doing business. Adrian's smile was definitely more than professional. Obviously, Marcus will send you the details. After Adrian and Marcus left, the conference room erupted in whispers and speculation. Maya sat in her chair, staring at the spot where Adrian had been sitting, wondering if she'd just agreed to a business dinner or accidentally said yes to a date with one of the most eligible bachelors in the city. "Maya," Mr. Peterson said, his voice carefully neutral, "we need to talk." She followed him to his office, preparing herself for either congratulations or termination, possibly both. "What just happened in there?" he asked, closing the door behind them. "I accidentally opened the wrong presentation, made a fool of myself, and somehow didn't get us fired." "Maya, Adrian Blackwood just asked you to dinner." "A business dinner," Maya corrected quickly, "to discuss the project." Mr. Peterson gave her a look that suggested he wasn't born yesterday. "Right, business. Maya, I've been in this industry for 20 years, and I've never seen a client react to a presentation the way Adrian Blackwood just reacted to yours. Which, I should point out, wasn't actually a presentation at all. I know, I'm sorry, I was nervous and... Don't apologize, whatever you did in there, it worked. But Maya..." Mr. Peterson's expression grew serious. "Be careful. Adrian Blackwood moves in very different circles than we do. Don't get in over your head." Maya nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead to tomorrow night, wondering what one wore to a maybe business, maybe not dinner with a billionaire who'd seen all her houseplant photos and somehow still wanted to have dinner with her. She spent the rest of the day in a weird, floaty state of disbelief, barely able to focus on her actual work. By the time she got home to her tiny apartment, she'd convinced herself that she'd imagined the whole thing. But then her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi Maya, this is Marcus, Mr. Blackwood's assistant. Dinner tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Verde. It's on 5th Street, rooftop level. Mr. Blackwood mentioned you might appreciate the garden. M." Maya stared at the message, then showed it to Spike, who offered no commentary whatsoever. "What do you think, Spike? Is this really happening?" Spike, being a cactus, maintained her usual stoic silence. "You're right," Maya said. "I'm probably overthinking this. It's just dinner, with the most attractive man I've ever met, who happens to be a billionaire, who saw me walk into a glass door and somehow still wants to eat food in my presence." She spent the next 24 hours in a state of barely controlled panic, trying on every item of clothing she owned at least twice. Her wardrobe, which consisted mainly of comfortable work clothes and pajamas with funny sayings on them, wasn't exactly designed for dinner with billionaires. Finally, she settled on a simple black dress that she'd bought for her cousin's wedding and had worn exactly once. It was elegant without being too fancy, and most importantly, it was difficult to trip in. Verde turned out to be the kind of restaurant Maya had only read about in magazines, the kind where you needed a reservation 3 months in advance, and the waiters looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion shoot. The hostess directed her to the elevator with a smile that managed to be both welcoming and intimidating. The rooftop garden was breathtaking. String lights twinkled overhead, and the entire space was filled with carefully arranged plants and flowers that somehow managed to look both wild and perfectly manicured. The city spread out below them like a carpet of lights, and Maya felt like she was in a movie. Adrian was already seated at a table near the edge of the garden, and when he stood to greet her, Maya's heart did something acrobatic that definitely wasn't medically advisable. "You found it," he said, pulling out her chair. "What do you think of the garden?" Maya looked around, taking in the lush greenery and thoughtful plant arrangements. "It's incredible. Though I have to ask, do you actually have a rooftop garden, or was that just a line to make me feel better about Spike?" "I actually do. Would you like to see it sometime?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications that went well beyond business dinners and client meetings. Maya sat down and immediately knocked over her water glass. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." Adrian calmly signaled the waiter, who appeared instantly with a towel and a replacement glass. "It's fine. Honestly, I'm just impressed you made it through the door without walking into it." "The night is young," Maya said, then immediately regretted it. "I mean, I'm not usually this klutzy. Actually, that's a lie. I'm exactly this klutzy, but I'm working on it." "Don't work on it too hard. It's part of your charm." Maya nearly choked on her water. "My charm, Adrian, you've seen me assault you with purse contents, walk into a glass door, and present a slideshow about my plants instead of your business proposal. If that's charm, then I really need to reevaluate my understanding of the word." "Maybe you do." Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her. "When was the last time you were yourself around someone you'd just met?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, most people try to impress me. They put on their best behavior, say what they think I want to hear, pretend to be someone they're not. But you've been completely, authentically yourself from the moment you crashed into me." Maya felt her cheeks warm. "Trust me, if I was trying to impress you, I would have done a much better job." "That's exactly my point." The waiter appeared to take their order, and Maya was relieved to have something to focus on besides Adrian's intense gaze. She ordered the first thing on the menu that looked safe, while Adrian chose something with ingredients she couldn't pronounce. "So," Adrian said once the waiter had left, "tell me about Maya Chen. What does someone who carries emergency cacti do when she's not accidentally charming billionaires?" Maya laughed. "Accidentally charming billionaires is a pretty new hobby, actually. Usually I spend my time killing plants, despite my best efforts, binge-watching cooking shows while eating cereal for dinner, and creating advertising campaigns that are significantly better than my presentation skills would suggest." "What kind of campaigns?" "Small businesses mostly, local restaurants, boutique shops, that sort of thing. Nothing as glamorous as luxury resorts." She paused. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you really ask me to dinner? And please don't say it's just about business, because I may be clumsy, but I'm not stupid." Adrian was quiet for a moment, twirling his wine glass between his fingers. "Do you know what my typical day looks like? Board meetings? Important phone calls? Counting money while wearing expensive suits?" He smiled. "Close. Meetings with people who want something from me. Dinners with people who think they know what I want to hear. Conversations that feel like elaborate chess games where everyone's trying to get 3 moves ahead." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. And then this woman crashes into me in a coffee shop, spills her entire life across the floor, and starts explaining her plant care philosophy to a complete stranger. She has no idea who I am, no agenda, no script. She's just real." Maya felt something flutter in her chest that was definitely not just the wine. "Adrian, I know this is complicated," he said quickly. "I know we come from different worlds, but I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since Tuesday morning." Before Maya could respond, their food arrived, and she was grateful for the distraction. This was moving into territory she wasn't equipped to handle. Adrian Blackwood, gorgeous, successful billionaire Adrian Blackwood, was sitting across from her saying he couldn't stop thinking about her. It felt like something that happened to other people, fictional people, people who didn't trip over flat surfaces. "Can I ask you something now?" she said, cutting into her salmon. "Fair's fair. What's it like, being you, I mean? Having all this—" She gestured vaguely at the restaurant, the city below, the general expensiveness of everything around them. Adrian considered the question seriously. "Lonely," he said finally. "Everything's a transaction. Every relationship has an agenda. I haven't had a real conversation with someone in, I can't remember how long. What about friends, family? My parents died when I was 22. Car accident. As for friends..." He shrugged. "It's hard to know who likes Adrian and who likes Adrian's bank account." Maya felt her heart squeeze. "I'm sorry about your parents." "Thank you. What about you? What's your family like?" "Wonderfully embarrassing. My mom calls me every day to make sure I'm eating vegetables and haven't been murdered by strangers. My dad sends me articles about why I should get a real job while simultaneously bragging about his daughter, the artist, to all his friends. I have two sisters who are both more successful and more coordinated than I am, but they still let me be the maid of honor at their weddings. They sound perfect. They are. Loud and opinionated and completely impossible, but perfect. Maya paused. You could meet them sometime if you want, though I should warn you, my mom will absolutely interrogate you about your intentions and my dad will want to show you his model train collection. I'd like that, Adrian said, and the sincerity in his voice made Maya's chest tight. They talked through the rest of dinner about everything and nothing, her college disasters, his business school stories, their shared love of old movies and terrible pop music. By the time dessert arrived, Maya had almost forgotten to be nervous. Almost. Adrian, she said, as they shared what the menu claimed was deconstructed tiramisu, but looked like expensive chaos on a plate. Yeah? What happens now? He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. What do you want to happen? Maya looked down at their joined hands, his elegant and manicured, hers paint-stained and sporting a small bandage from her latest battle with a craft project. I want to see you again, but I also want to be realistic about this. You're you, and I'm me. Maya, look at me. She raised her eyes to his. You're funny and talented and genuine and beautiful. You make me laugh, you challenge me to think differently, and you're the first person in years who's made me forget about work for more than 5 minutes. I don't care about different worlds or complications or any of that. But other people will care. Let me worry about other people. Adrian called for the check, but Maya insisted on splitting it, which led to a 5-minute argument that ended with Adrian pointing out that he'd invited her, and it was therefore his responsibility to pay, and Maya pointing out that she wasn't a charity case and could afford to buy her own dinner. Thank you very much. You know, Adrian said as they waited for the elevator, most people don't argue with me about money. Most people probably don't spill their purse contents all over you either, but here we are. The elevator arrived and they stepped inside. Maya was suddenly very aware of how small the space was, how close Adrian was standing, how he smelled like expensive cologne and something that was just essentially him. Maya? She looked up at him, and the air between them seemed to crackle with possibility. Yeah? I'm going to kiss you now, if that's okay. Maya's brain short-circuited completely. Here? In the elevator? Here, in the elevator. What if someone sees? Then they'll see me kissing the most amazing woman I've ever met. Before Maya could point out all the ways that statement was factually incorrect, Adrian's hands were cupping her face, and his lips were on hers, and suddenly nothing else mattered. The kiss was soft and sweet and perfect, and Maya felt like she was floating. When they broke apart, Maya stared up at him with what she was sure was a ridiculous expression on her face. Wow, she whispered. Good wow or bad wow? Definitely good wow. Though I should point out that you've just kissed someone who walked into a glass door this week. Best decision I've ever made, Adrian murmured, and kissed her again. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and they stepped out into the lobby, Maya's hand somehow finding its way into Adrian's. They walked to the street in comfortable silence, both of them grinning like teenagers. I'll have Marcus call you tomorrow, Adrian said as they waited for Maya's taxi. About the resort campaign, but also about this. This being us, whatever this is going to be. Maya's taxi pulled up, and Adrian opened the door for her. Before she could get in, he caught her hand and pulled her back for one more kiss. Good night, Maya Chen. Good night, Adrian Blackwood. Maya spent the entire taxi ride home touching her lips and trying to convince herself that the evening had actually happened. By the time she got to her apartment, she was equal parts elated and terrified. She unlocked her door, kicked off her shoes, and immediately called her best friend, Lisa. Maya, it's almost midnight. Are you okay? Lisa, I think I'm in trouble. What kind of trouble? Do I need to come over with ice cream and legal advice? The kind of trouble where you accidentally fall for a billionaire and have no idea what you're doing. There was a pause. Okay, you're going to need to start from the beginning. Maya spent the next hour recounting the entire evening, from the restaurant to the elevator kiss, to the way Adrian had looked at her like she was something precious and rare. "Maya," Lisa said when she finished, "this sounds like a fairy tale." "That's what I'm afraid of. Fairy tales aren't real, Lisa, and when regular people try to live them, they usually get hurt. Or maybe sometimes regular people discover they're more extraordinary than they thought." Maya looked at Spike, who was sitting on her windowsill looking judgmental. "What do you think, Spike? Am I being an idiot?" "Maya," Lisa said gently, "you're scared. That's normal. But don't let fear keep you from something that could be amazing." After they hung up, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening. Adrian's laugh when she'd accidentally opened her plant presentation, the way he'd looked at her across the dinner table, the softness of his lips, the gentle way he'd held her face when he kissed her. She was definitely in trouble. The next morning, Maya woke up to 17 missed calls from Mr. Peterson and a text from Marcus with meeting details for the resort campaign. Reality came crashing back like a cold shower. Whatever was happening between her and Adrian, she still had a job to do, and she couldn't afford to mess it up. She arrived at the office early, determined to create the best presentation of her career. But as she settled at her desk with her laptop and a large coffee, she realized she had no idea how to separate her feelings for Adrian from her professional responsibilities. "Maya!" Mr. Peterson appeared at her cubicle, looking frazzled. "Conference room. Now." She followed him, expecting to find the usual morning team meeting, but instead found Adrian sitting at the conference table with Marcus and a woman Maya didn't recognize. A stunning brunette in a perfectly tailored designer suit who looked like she belonged on the cover of Vogue. "Maya," Adrian said, standing as she entered, "I'd like you to meet Victoria Sterling, my business partner." Victoria extended a perfectly manicured hand with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "So you're the famous Maya Chen. Adrian's told me so much about you." Something in Victoria's tone made Maya's stomach twist, but she shook the offered hand politely. "Nice to meet you." "Victoria will be working closely with us on the resort project," Adrian explained. "She specializes in luxury hospitality." "How wonderful," Maya said, trying to ignore the way Victoria was studying her like she was a bug under a microscope. The meeting proceeded normally enough, with Maya presenting her refined campaign concepts and Victoria offering input that was both helpful and subtly condescending. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else going on, some undercurrent she wasn't picking up on. It wasn't until after the meeting, when Maya was gathering her materials, that Victoria approached her. "Maya, could I have a word? Privately." Adrian had already left for another meeting, and Mr. Peterson was on a phone call in his office. Maya nodded, curiosity overriding her instincts. "I wanted to talk to you about Adrian," Victoria said, her voice friendly but her eyes calculating. "How long have you known him?" "Not long," Maya said carefully. "We met earlier this week." "Earlier this week?" Victoria's smile grew sharper. "How interesting. You know, Adrian and I have been working together for 3 years. We've built something quite special together." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "The business, you mean?" "Among other things." Victoria stepped closer. "Maya, you seem like a sweet girl, but I think there are some things you should know about Adrian's patterns." "Patterns." "Adrian gets bored easily. He's attracted to novelty, to things that seem different or interesting, but it never lasts." Victoria's voice was gentle, almost sympathetic. "I'd hate to see you get hurt when his attention moves on to the next fascinating distraction." Maya felt like she'd been slapped. "I think you're mistaken about—" "Am I? Tell me, Maya, what do you really have in common with Adrian Blackwood? What could someone like you possibly offer someone like him long-term?" The question hit Maya like a physical blow because it was the exact thing she'd been wondering herself. What did she have to offer Adrian? She was a small-town girl with a tiny apartment and a cactus. He was sophisticated, worldly, successful beyond measure. "I should get back to work," Maya said quietly. "Of course, just think about what I said, okay? Adrian's friendship means everything to me, and I'd hate to see him make a mistake that could complicate things between us." Victoria walked away, leaving Maya standing in the conference room, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. She tried to tell herself that Victoria was wrong, that the woman was obviously jealous or threatened or something, but the seeds of doubt had been planted, and Maya couldn't shake Victoria's words. What did she really have to offer Adrian Blackwood? That evening, Maya was half-heartedly working on campaign revisions when her phone rang. Adrian's name appeared on the screen, and her heart did its usual acrobatic routine. "Hi," she answered, trying to sound normal. "Hi yourself. How was the rest of your day?" "Fine, good, the usual." Maya winced at how stilted she sounded. "How was yours?" "Long, full of meetings with people who aren't you." There was a pause. "Maya, are you okay? You sound off." Maya closed her eyes. She wanted to tell him about her conversation with Victoria, wanted to ask him about their relationship, wanted reassurance that what was happening between them was real. But Victoria's words echoed in her mind, making her doubt everything. "I'm fine," she said finally. "Just tired." "Maya." Adrian's voice was gentle but concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, maybe we should keep things professional for now. With the campaign and everything, it might be better if we focus on work." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Maya wondered if the call had dropped. "Did something happen today?" Adrian asked finally. "After I left the meeting," Maya wanted to tell him. The words were right there, begging to be spoken. But then she heard Victoria's voice again. What could someone like you possibly offer someone like him? "No," she lied. "Nothing happened. I just think it's better this way." Another long pause. "If that's what you want." "It is." "Okay, I'll have Marcus coordinate with your team on the campaign details." The formality in his voice made Maya's chest ache. "Adrian, Good night, Maya." The line went dead, and Maya stared at her phone, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. But Victoria was right about one thing. She and Adrian came from completely different worlds. Maybe it was better to end things before they really got started, before she got in too deep and ended up with a broken heart. She spent the next 2 weeks throwing herself into the resort campaign, creating concepts and designs that were some of the best work of her career. She told herself it was professional pride, but she knew the truth. Every detail was perfect because she wanted Adrian to see what she was capable of, wanted to prove that she was more than just a clumsy girl who carried emergency plants. The campaign presentation was scheduled for a Friday afternoon, and Maya had prepared obsessively. Every slide was perfect, every transition smooth, every word carefully chosen. She'd even practiced in the actual conference room to make sure she wouldn't trip over anything. The morning of the presentation, Maya arrived at the office to find a delivery waiting for her, a small potted orchid with a card that simply read, "For luck, A." She stared at the delicate purple flowers, her heart squeezing painfully. Even after she'd pushed him away, Adrian was still thinking about her, still finding ways to be kind. "Maya." Mr. Peterson appeared at her cubicle. "They're here." She followed him to the conference room, the orchid clutched in her hands like a talisman. Adrian was already seated, looking devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit, his expression professionally neutral. Victoria was beside him, elegant and composed as always. "Good afternoon, everyone," Maya began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Today, I'll be presenting our comprehensive campaign strategy for Blackwood Luxury Resorts." The presentation went flawlessly. Maya spoke with confidence about their brand vision, their target demographic, their marketing strategy. She showed mock-ups of advertisements that captured the authentic luxury experience she'd described at their dinner, concepts that were both sophisticated and approachable. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before Mr. Peterson started applauding. "That was exceptional, Maya," he said. "Truly exceptional." Victoria nodded approvingly. "Very impressive. You've clearly put a lot of thought into this." Maya looked at Adrian, who had remained silent throughout her presentation. He was studying her with an expression she couldn't read. "Mr. Blackwood?" Mr. Peterson prompted. "What do you think?" Adrian stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. "I think," he said carefully, "that this is exactly what we're looking for. The campaign captures something authentic and real, something that will resonate with people who are looking for genuine experiences." Maya felt a flush of pride and relief. "Thank you. However," Adrian continued, "I have one concern." Maya's stomach dropped. "What's that?" "I'm not sure Sterling and Associates is the right fit for this project after all." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Around the table she could see her colleagues' faces fall, could practically hear their hopes and dreams crashing to the ground. "Adrian," Victoria said, sounding surprised, "the presentation was excellent. Why would you—" "Because," Adrian said, his gaze still locked on Maya's, "I think Maya Chen should handle this campaign independently, as a freelancer, with a significantly larger budget and complete creative control." Maya blinked, sure she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me. This campaign is brilliant, Maya, but it's being held back by agency constraints and committee decisions. I want you to run it yourself." "But I can't just leave Sterling and Associates. I have a job here, responsibilities." "Maya," Mr. Peterson interrupted, his voice carefully controlled, "if Mr. Blackwood is offering you an independent contract, you should consider it very seriously." Maya looked around the room, seeing the mixture of excitement and envy on her colleagues' faces. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, the kind of break that could launch her career into the stratosphere. But it also meant working closely with Adrian, and she wasn't sure her heart could handle that. "I need some time to think about it," she said finally. Adrian nodded. "Of course, take all the time you need." The meeting ended shortly after, with handshakes and business cards and promises to be in touch. As everyone filed out, Adrian lingered, pretending to organize his papers. "Maya," he said when they were alone, "can we talk?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, 5 minutes." Maya looked at him, at the pleading expression in those green eyes, and felt her resolve crumble. 5 minutes. Adrian closed the conference room door and turned to face her. "What happened? 2 weeks ago we had dinner, we talked, we kissed, and then suddenly you wanted to keep things professional. What changed?" Maya fidgeted with the orchid he'd sent her, unable to meet his eyes. "Nothing changed, I realized you were right about us being from different worlds." "I never said that." "But it's true, isn't it? Look at this room, Adrian. Look at the offer you just made. You can change someone's entire career with a single decision. You have that kind of power, that kind of influence, and I'm just me. Maya, look at me." Reluctantly, she raised her eyes to his. "You're not just anything. You're talented and creative and amazing, and the campaign you just presented was brilliant." "Was it? Or are you just saying that because we—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Understanding dawned in Adrian's eyes. "Someone said something to you. About us." Maya's silence was answer enough. "Who was it? Victoria?" "It doesn't matter." She was right. What do I really have to offer someone like you? I live in a studio apartment, I drive a car that's older than some of my co-workers, and my biggest professional achievement before this week was a billboard for a local pizza place. Maya, no, let me finish. I've been thinking about this for 2 weeks, and I keep coming back to the same question. What happens when you get bored? When the novelty of dating someone normal wears off, and you remember that you could be with someone who actually fits into your world? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight with what looked like barely controlled anger. "Is that really what you think of me? That I'm so shallow, so fickle, that I'd pursue you as some kind of entertainment? I don't know what to think. I don't know how any of this works." "Then let me tell you how it works." Adrian stepped closer, his voice intense. "I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to forget about you. I've gone to business dinners with accomplished, sophisticated women who would be perfect matches on paper. I've tried to convince myself that Victoria was right, that what I felt for you was just infatuation, just novelty. Victoria said, I don't care what Victoria said. What I care about is this. I can't stop thinking about you, Maya. Not about the campaign, not about work, but about you. The way you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating, the way you talk to your plants like they're people, the way you make me laugh without even trying. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. Adrian, I know you're scared, I'm scared too. But don't let fear make this decision for us. Before Maya could respond, the conference room door opened and Victoria walked in, stopping short when she saw them standing close together. "Oh," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were still meeting." "We were just finishing," Maya said quickly, stepping away from Adrian. "Actually," Adrian said, his voice cool, "Victoria, I'm glad you're here. Maya and I were just discussing some concerns about the campaign." Victoria's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "What kind of concerns?" "The kind that make me wonder if someone's been sharing their personal opinions about professional matters." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Victoria's polished composure slipped just enough for Maya to see something calculating underneath. "I'm not sure what you mean," Victoria said carefully. "I think you do." Adrian's voice was quietly dangerous. "Maya, would you mind giving Victoria and me a moment to discuss some business matters?" Maya looked between them, sensing undercurrents she didn't fully understand. "Of course, I should get back to work anyway." She gathered her things and headed for the door, but not before she heard Adrian say, "Victoria, I think it's time we had a conversation about boundaries." Maya spent the rest of the afternoon trying to focus on her regular work, but her mind kept drifting back to the conference room, to Adrian's words, to the expression on Victoria's face when she'd walked in on them. At 6 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Can you meet me at Verde tonight, 8 p.m? There are some things you need to know." Maya stared at the message, torn between curiosity and self-preservation. Every rational part of her brain said to stay home, to maintain the distance she'd worked so hard to create, but her heart was already reaching for her purse. She arrived at Verde a few minutes after 8 to find Adrian waiting at the same table where they'd had their first dinner. He stood when he saw her, but his smile was tense. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't." Maya fidgeted with her napkin. "Adrian, what's this about?" "Victoria, and the things she's been telling you about me." Maya felt her cheeks burn. "You talked to her?" "I did, and she admitted to having a conversation with you about my patterns and your unsuitability as a potential partner. She was just looking out for you." "No, Maya, she wasn't." Adrian's voice was grim. "Victoria Sterling and I have a complicated history. We dated briefly 3 years ago when we first started working together. It didn't work out. We wanted different things, had different priorities. I thought we'd moved past it and could maintain a professional relationship." Maya's stomach sank. "But she didn't move past it." "Apparently not. She's been protective of our working relationship, shall we say. Any woman I've shown interest in has somehow found reasons to distance themselves from me." "How many women?" "Not many. I don't date often. My lifestyle doesn't really allow for it. But the few times I've tried," Adrian shrugged, "let's just say Victoria has a talent for planting seeds of doubt." Maya thought about her conversation with Victoria, how expertly the woman had identified and exploited all of Maya's insecurities. She knew exactly what to say to me. "She's very good at reading people, finding their weak spots. It's one of the things that makes her an excellent business partner, but a terrible ex-girlfriend." "So what does this mean? For us, I mean." Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. "It means I'd like to try again, without Victoria's interference, without your doubts about our different backgrounds, without any of the noise that's been clouding things between us." Maya looked down at their joined hands. "Adrian, those concerns weren't just Victoria talking. I really don't know if I fit into your world." "Then let me show you." Adrian's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "There's a charity gala next Saturday night. It's the kind of event I usually attend alone or with a business associate. Come with me. Meet my friends, see what my world is really like, and then decide if it's somewhere you want to be." "A charity gala." Maya's voice was faint. "With billionaires and socialites and people who probably went to Swiss boarding schools. With people who are just people, Maya. Some of them are pompous and boring. Some of them are kind and interesting. And most of them are somewhere in between. just like everywhere else. Maya was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options. She could say no, maintain her safe distance, and always wonder what might have been. Or she could say yes, step outside her comfort zone, and risk having her heart broken in front of hundreds of wealthy strangers. "What would I even wear to something like that?" she asked finally. Adrian's smile was like sunrise. "Leave that to me. I can't let you buy me a dress, Adrian. That's too much." "Then consider it a business expense. You're going to be representing the Blackwood Luxury Resort campaign after all." Maya realized he was referring to his offer to have her handle the campaign independently. "I haven't said yes to that yet." "But you're considering it." "I'm considering a lot of things." Maya met his eyes. "Okay, yes, I'll go to your gala. But I'm paying for my own dress." "We'll negotiate that later." The waiter appeared to take their order, and Maya realized she was actually hungry for the first time in 2 weeks. The knot of anxiety in her stomach had loosened, replaced by something that felt suspiciously like hope. "Adrian," she said as they waited for their food, "what happens if I don't fit in at this gala? What if I embarrass you?" "Maya, you could show up in sweatpants and sneakers and you'd still be the most interesting person there." "That's not really an answer." Adrian was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "My parents used to throw parties like this one. Big, elaborate affairs with hundreds of guests and enough champagne to float a small boat. I was always expected to attend, to smile and make small talk and represent the family name." "That sounds terrible." "It was. But you know what the worst part was? Everyone was performing, playing roles, saying what they thought others wanted to hear, never revealing anything real about themselves. I learned to do it too, because that's what was expected." Maya nodded, beginning to understand. "But with you," Adrian continued, "I don't have to perform. I can just be me. And if you can do that at this gala, just be yourself, then you'll fit in better than most of the people there. Even if I trip over my dress. Especially if you trip over your dress." They talked through dinner about lighter things, Maya's latest plant acquisitions, Adrian's upcoming travel schedule, their shared obsession with a cooking show neither of them would admit to watching. By the time dessert arrived, Maya felt like herself again for the first time in weeks. "I should probably head home," she said as they finished sharing a chocolate tart that was probably worth more than her monthly grocery budget. "I have an early meeting tomorrow. About the campaign. About everything. Mr. Peterson wants to discuss my options." Adrian signaled for the check. "Maya, whatever you decide about the freelance contract, I want you to know that it's a legitimate offer based on your talent and the quality of your work. It has nothing to do with what's happening between us personally." "How can you separate the two?" "Because I've been in business long enough to know that mixing personal feelings with professional decisions is a recipe for disaster. Your campaign is brilliant, Maya. It deserves to succeed regardless of whether you and I ever have dinner again." Maya felt something warm settle in her chest at his words. "Thank you for saying that. I'm saying it because it's true." They rode the elevator down in comfortable silence, and Adrian walked her to the street to wait for her taxi. The night air was cool, and Maya shivered slightly in her light jacket. "Here," Adrian said, shrugging out of his suit jacket and draping it around her shoulders. The jacket smelled like him, expensive cologne and something uniquely Adrian, and Maya had to resist the urge to bury her face in the fabric. "I'll get this back to you," she said. "Keep it for now. You'll need it for the ride home." Maya's taxi pulled up, and Adrian opened the door for her. Before she could get in, he caught her hand. "Maya." "Yeah? I'm glad you came tonight. I've missed you." "I've missed you too," she admitted. Adrian leaned down and kissed her softly, a gentle brush of lips that was somehow more intimate than their passionate elevator kiss had been. "I'll have Marcus send you details about the gala," he said, as she settled into the taxi. "Okay. And Adrian?" "Yeah? Thank you. For explaining about Victoria, for being patient with me, for all of it. Thank you for giving us another chance." Maya spent the taxi ride home wrapped in Adrian's jacket, touching her lips and trying to process everything that had happened. Victoria's warnings, Adrian's explanations, the charity gala, the freelance offer. It was all swirling around in her head like a tornado of possibility and terror. By the time she got home, she'd made a decision about the campaign. She was going to take the freelance contract, not because of Adrian, not because of the money, but because it was the opportunity of a lifetime, and she'd be an idiot to pass it up. As for the gala and Adrian and whatever was happening between them, she'd figure that out one step at a time. The next morning, Maya walked into Mr. Peterson's office wearing Adrian's jacket over her regular work clothes and carrying a letter of resignation. "Maya," Mr. Peterson said, looking up from his computer. "Right on time. I trust you've given some thought to Mr. Blackwood's offer." "I have." Maya sat down and handed him the letter. "I'm accepting his offer to handle the campaign as an independent contractor." Mr. Peterson read the letter, his expression unreadable. "This is a big step, Maya. Are you sure you're ready for this kind of responsibility?" "No," Maya said honestly. "I'm terrified, but I'm also excited, and I think that means it's the right decision." "What about Mr. Blackwood? The personal aspect of this situation?" Maya had been dreading this question. "I'm going to do my best to keep things professional." Mr. Peterson studied her for a moment, then smiled. "Maya, in 20 years of business, I've learned that sometimes the best professional relationships start with personal connections. Just be careful. And remember that you always have a place here if things don't work out." "Thank you, Mr. Peterson, for everything." Maya spent her last day at Sterling & Associates organizing files and transitioning her regular clients to other team members. It felt strange and sad and exciting all at once, like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. That evening, she called her parents to tell them about the career change. Her mother immediately went into protective mode, wanting to know everything about Adrian and his intentions, while her father was more concerned about the practical aspects of freelancing and whether she had enough savings to weather the transition. "Mom, it's a business relationship," Maya insisted for the 5th time. "He's a client, not a boyfriend." "Maya Elizabeth Chen, I didn't raise a stupid daughter. No man offers a woman a 6-figure contract just because he likes her PowerPoint skills." "My PowerPoint skills are excellent, thank you very much. You know what I mean, just be careful, sweetheart. Rich men and regular girls, it's complicated." After hanging up, Maya sat in her tiny living room looking around at her modest furniture and second-hand decorations. In a few days, she'd be attending a charity gala in a world she'd only seen in movies. In a few weeks, she'd be running a major advertising campaign with a budget larger than her annual salary. And somewhere in the middle of all that, she'd be trying to figure out if what she felt for Adrian Blackwood was real, and if it could survive the collision between their two very different worlds. Saturday night arrived faster than Maya had expected, bringing with it a level of anxiety she hadn't experienced since her college finals. She'd spent the week shopping for a dress, finally settling on a simple black gown that was elegant, without being flashy, expensive enough to fit in, but not so expensive that she'd feel guilty about the credit card bill. Adrian had sent a car to pick her up. Not his usual driver, but an actual limousine that looked like something from a movie. Maya felt ridiculous climbing into the back seat in her carefully chosen dress and borrowed jewelry, like a little girl playing dress-up in her mother's clothes. The gala was being held at the Metropolitan Museum, and as Maya's limousine pulled up behind a line of equally impressive vehicles, she began to understand the scale of the event she'd agreed to attend. Photographers lined the red carpet, flashbulbs popping as elegantly dressed couples posed for pictures. "Oh God," Maya whispered to herself, "what have I gotten myself into?" Her driver opened the door, and Maya stepped out onto the red carpet on legs that felt like jelly. She immediately began looking around for Adrian, hoping he'd be waiting for her, but the crowd was thick and everyone looked expensively similar. "Maya?" She turned to see Adrian approaching, and her breath caught in her throat. He was wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped off the pages of a magazine, but it was his smile, warm and genuine, and just for her, that made her heart skip. "You look beautiful," he said, taking her hand and kissing her cheek. "I feel like I'm going to throw up," Maya whispered. Adrian laughed. "That's perfectly normal. Come on, let's get inside before you change your mind and run away." He offered her his arm, and they walked into the museum together. Maya tried not to gape at the transformed space. What she remembered as echoing halls filled with ancient artifacts had been turned into a glittering ballroom with crystal chandeliers, elaborate floral arrangements, and enough champagne to float a yacht. Adrian! A woman in a silver dress approached them, air-kissing Adrian on both cheeks. "Darling, you look wonderful. And who is this lovely creature?" "Patricia. I'd like you to meet Maya Chen." "Maya, this is Patricia Worthington. She chairs the museum's board of directors." Maya shook Patricia's hand, trying to remember everything her mother had taught her about meeting important people. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Worthington. Please, call me Patricia. Any friend of Adrian's is a friend of mine. What do you do, dear?" "I'm in advertising," Maya said, then added, "I actually just started working on Adrian's resort campaign." "How exciting. Adrian, you didn't tell me you were working with such a charming young woman." Maya felt herself relaxing slightly. Patricia seemed genuinely nice, not at all the intimidating socialite Maya had been expecting. "Come," Adrian said, "let me introduce you to some other people." The next hour passed in a blur of names and faces, handshakes and small talk. Maya met investment bankers and art collectors, tech entrepreneurs and fashion designers, politicians and philanthropists. Some were exactly as pompous and self-important as she'd expected, but many were surprisingly down-to-earth, asking genuine questions about her work and sharing stories about their own careers. "You're doing great," Adrian murmured during a brief lull in the introductions. "Everyone loves you." "I haven't tripped yet," Maya said. "The night is still young. Even if you do trip, you'll do it with more grace than most of the people here." They were interrupted by the arrival of a tall man with silver hair and an expensive smile. "Adrian, there you are. I've been looking for you everywhere." "James," Adrian said, his tone noticeably cooler, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Wouldn't miss it. The Harrison Foundation is one of our biggest supporters." James's eyes moved to Maya with obvious interest. "And who might this be?" "Maya Chen," Adrian said carefully. "Maya, this is James Morrison." Maya shook James's hand, immediately sensing tension between the two men that she didn't understand. "Maya Chen," James repeated, as if testing the name. "Have we met before? You look familiar." "I don't think so," Maya said. "I'm in advertising." "Advertising? How interesting." James's smile was sharp. "What agency?" "I'm actually freelancing now, working on the Blackwood Resort campaign." Something flickered in James's eyes. "The Blackwood campaign? Adrian, you didn't mention you were working with a new agency." "Maya's an independent contractor," Adrian said, his voice tight. "If you'll excuse us, James, I promised to show Maya the Egyptian collection." "Of course. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Maya. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." Adrian guided Maya away from James, his hand firm on her back. "Who was that?" Maya asked once they were out of earshot. "James Morrison. He runs Morrison Development Group. We've had some business disagreements in the past." "He seemed to know who I was." Adrian stopped walking. "What do you mean?" "When you introduced me, he looked at me like he recognized me, but I've never met him before." Adrian's expression darkened. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay." "Have you told anyone about our relationship? About the campaign contract? Anyone at all?" Maya thought back over the past few weeks. "I told my best friend Lisa about our dinner, and I told my parents about the job. Why? What exactly did you tell them?" "Just that I was working on a campaign for you, and that we'd had dinner. I didn't give them any details about the business side of things." Maya felt a chill of apprehension. "Adrian, what's going on?" Before Adrian could answer, Maya heard a familiar voice behind her. "Well, well, look what we have here." Maya turned to see Victoria Sterling approaching, resplendent in a red dress that probably cost more than Maya's car. She was accompanied by James Morrison, and both of them were wearing expressions that made Maya's stomach drop. "Victoria," Adrian said warningly, "what are you doing here?" "The same thing you are, I assume. Supporting a worthy cause." Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. "Though I have to say, I'm surprised to see you here with Maya." "After everything that's happened, "What are you talking about?" Maya asked, looking between Victoria and Adrian. "Oh dear," Victoria said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Adrian hasn't told you about the Morrison account?" Maya felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. "What Morrison account?" James stepped forward, his expression grimly satisfied. "The account that Adrian lost to someone who had inside information about his campaign strategy. Information that could only have come from someone with access to his business plans." "I don't understand," Maya said, but even as she spoke, the pieces were starting to fall into place. The way James had looked at her when they'd been introduced, Victoria's presence at the gala, the satisfied expressions on both their faces. "Maya," Adrian said quietly, "we should talk privately." "No," Victoria said firmly. "I think Maya deserves to know the truth right here, right now." "James, why don't you explain what happened?" James was clearly enjoying himself. 2 weeks ago, Morrison Development Group was approached by a potential client, a luxury hotel chain looking to rebrand their properties. They came to us with detailed information about Blackwood Industries' marketing strategy, including campaign concepts that were remarkably similar to what Adrian had been developing. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Victoria asked. "You're the only person outside of Blackwood Industries who had access to those campaign details, Maya. The only person who knew about Adrian's plans for the resort chain." "But I didn't tell anyone anything. I would never—" "Maya," Adrian said, his voice carefully controlled, "I believe you. But the timeline is problematic. The information leak happened right after our first dinner, right after I shared details about the campaign with you." Maya stared at Adrian, seeing doubt creeping into his eyes despite his words. Around them, other gala attendees were beginning to notice the tension, conversations stopping as people turned to watch the drama unfolding. "You think I did this?" Maya whispered. "You actually think I would steal your business secrets and sell them to a competitor?" "I don't want to think that," Adrian said. "But Maya, you have to admit, the circumstances—" "No." Maya's voice was stronger now, anger beginning to burn through her shock. "I don't have to admit anything. You either trust me or you don't, Adrian. There's no middle ground here." "Maya, please," Adrian said, reaching for her. "Let's go somewhere private and talk about this." Maya stepped back, avoiding his touch. "To talk about what? About how you believe I'm capable of corporate espionage? About how you think so little of me that you'd assume I'd betray you for money?" "That's not what I think, isn't it?" Maya looked around at the watching crowd, at Victoria's satisfied expression, at James's smug smile. "You know what? You're right about one thing. I don't belong in this world. I don't belong at galas where people smile to your face while they plot to destroy you. I don't belong in business meetings where every word is analyzed for hidden meanings. And I clearly don't belong with someone who could look at me and see a corporate spy." "Maya, wait." But Maya was already walking away, pushing through the crowd of elegant strangers, desperate to escape the suffocating atmosphere of wealth and suspicion. She made it to the museum's entrance before the tears started, hot and angry and humiliating. The doorman called her a taxi, and Maya sat in the back seat still wearing her beautiful dress, crying into her hands while the city lights blurred past the windows. She felt like Cinderella in reverse. The magic hadn't worn off at midnight. It had been ripped away in a public spectacle that left her feeling exposed and foolish. By the time she got home, Maya had made several decisions. She was going to return Adrian's jacket, cancel the freelance contract, and forget that any of this had ever happened. She was going to go back to her small, safe life, where the biggest risk was whether her plants would survive her care. She was reaching for her keys when she heard footsteps behind her. "Maya." She turned to see Adrian standing at the bottom of her apartment building's steps, still in his tuxedo, but with his bow tie undone and his hair disheveled. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I came to apologize." "For what? For thinking I'm a thief or for letting your ex-girlfriend humiliate me in front of half of New York's social elite?" Adrian climbed the steps until he was standing in front of her. "For all of it. For not defending you immediately. For letting doubt cloud my judgment. For not seeing what Victoria and James were really doing." "Which was what exactly?" "Setting you up." This whole thing was orchestrated, Maya. Victoria knew about the Morrison account because she's been feeding James information about our business for months. She set up tonight to make it look like you were the leak. Maya stared at him. How do you know that? Because after you left, I did some digging. Marcus pulled our security logs and found evidence of Victoria accessing files she had no business looking at. We also found communications between her and James, dating back to before you and I even met. So Victoria was the real spy. Yes, and she used our relationship to deflect suspicion onto you. Maya leaned against her apartment door, suddenly exhausted. Why? Why would she do that? Because she saw you as a threat, not just to her business relationship with me, but to her plans to win me back personally. Plans she never had a chance of succeeding with, Adrian continued. But that didn't stop her from trying to eliminate the competition. Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing everything Adrian had told her. So you believe me now? About not being a corporate spy? Maya, I should have believed you from the beginning. I should have known that someone who carries emergency cacti and makes presentations about plant care philosophy isn't capable of corporate espionage. That's actually a pretty good character assessment. Adrian smiled hopefully. Does this mean you forgive me? Maya looked at him, this gorgeous, powerful man who had followed her home to apologize, who had uncovered the truth about Victoria's betrayal, who was standing on her shabby apartment steps like some kind of romantic hero from a movie. I don't know, she said honestly. Adrian, what happened tonight? It showed me something about your world that I'm not sure I can handle. What do you mean? The suspicion, the manipulation, the way people smile at you while they're plotting against you. Is that what your life is always like? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Sometimes. Not always, but sometimes, yes. And you want me to be part of that? You want to bring someone like me into that world? Maya, you are not just someone like you. You're smart and strong and genuine, and those qualities don't make you weak. They make you powerful. Tonight, you handled Victoria and James with more grace and dignity than they deserved. I ran away crying. You left with your head held high after standing up for yourself against two people who were trying to destroy you. There's a difference. Maya felt some of her anger beginning to soften, but the hurt was still there, sharp and fresh. Adrian, when you looked at me tonight and I saw that doubt in your eyes, it broke something in me. How can we have a relationship if you don't trust me? You're right. I should have trusted you completely without question, and I promise you, Maya, if you give me another chance, I will never doubt you again. How can you promise that? What happens the next time someone tries to come between us? What happens when the next Victoria shows up with the next elaborate scheme? Then I'll remember this night. I'll remember how it felt to lose you, and I'll choose to trust you instead of my fears. Maya looked into his eyes, seeing sincerity there, but also seeing the pain she'd caused him when she'd walked away. Adrian, I need you to understand something. I'm not built for this kind of drama. I don't know how to play these games, how to navigate this world of corporate intrigue and social manipulation. I'm not asking you to play games. I'm asking you to be yourself, the same woman who crashed into me in a coffee shop and made me remember what it feels like to laugh. What if being myself isn't enough? What if I can't handle the pressure, the scrutiny, the constant wondering if people like me for me, or because of my connection to you? Adrian reached out and gently took her hands. Maya, do you remember what you told me about authentic experiences? About how luxury isn't about showing off, but about having the space and time to remember what makes you happy? She nodded. You make me happy. Not because you fit into my world perfectly, not because you say the right things or wear the right clothes, but because when I'm with you, I remember who I am underneath all the business suits and board meetings. Maya felt tears gathering in her eyes again, but this time they weren't tears of anger or humiliation. Adrian, I love you, he said simply. I've been trying not to say it because I thought it was too soon, too complicated, too risky. But watching you walk away tonight made me realize that the biggest risk is not telling you how I feel. The words hung in the air between them, and Maya felt her heart stop and start again. You love me. I love that you talk to your plants. I love that you trip over flat surfaces and somehow make it look endearing. I love that you present Cactus slideshows to billionaires and don't apologize for it. I love your laugh, your kindness, your terrible taste in late-night television, and the way you scrunch your nose when you're thinking. Maya started crying in earnest now, unable to stop the tears from flowing. That's a very specific list. I've had time to think about it. Adrian, She took a shaky breath. I love you too. Which is why this is so terrifying. Loving someone means trusting them. And after tonight, I know. I broke your trust, and I'm going to spend however long it takes earning it back. Maya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, probably smearing her carefully applied makeup. What about Victoria and the business? Victoria's been terminated, effective immediately. As for the business, Morrison Development can have whatever information she gave them. Our campaign is better, our strategy is stronger, and we have something they don't have. What's that? You. Adrian smiled. Maya, the campaign you created isn't just good marketing, it's revolutionary. It's going to change how people think about luxury travel, about authentic experiences, about what really matters when you're trying to escape from everyday life. You really think so? I know so, and so does every other resort company that's been calling Marcus trying to poach you for their own campaigns. Maya blinked. What? Word travels fast in our industry. After your presentation, you became the most sought-after freelance creative in the city. You have 3 other companies wanting to hire you, including one that offered to double what I'm paying you. Are you serious? Completely serious. Maya, you could write your own ticket right now. You could start your own agency, take on the biggest clients in the industry, build the kind of career most people only dream about. Maya felt a rush of pride and excitement, followed immediately by a stab of fear. But what does that mean for us? If I become successful, if I start moving in your circles professionally, it means you'll never have to wonder if someone values you for your connection to me, because you'll have built your own reputation, your own success. And personally, what does it mean for us personally? Adrian stepped closer, his hands still holding hers. It means we can be partners in every sense of the word, equal partners building something together. Maya looked up at him, this man who had somehow seen past her clumsiness and insecurities to the potential she'd never recognized in herself. Adrian, I'm still scared. So am I. But Maya, I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. That's a terrible business strategy. Good thing this isn't business. Maya felt herself wavering, caught between her fear of getting hurt and her love for the man standing in front of her. If we do this, if we really try to make this work, I need some promises from you. Anything. No more secrets. No more protecting me from the ugly parts of your world. If we're going to be partners, I need to know what I'm dealing with. Agreed. And no more doubting me. Ever. If someone tries to come between us, you trust me first and ask questions later. Absolutely. And Adrian? Maya reached up and touched his face. No more running away. From either of us. When things get hard, we talk it out. No matter how scary or difficult or complicated it gets. I promise. Adrian leaned into her touch. Maya, does this mean you're giving us another chance? Maya stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. It means I'm giving us a real chance. No more testing the waters, no more keeping things casual. If we're doing this, we're doing it all the way. Adrian wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. I love you, Maya Chen. I love you too, Adrian Blackwood, even when you're being an idiot. Especially when I'm being an idiot. Especially then. They stood there on her apartment steps, holding each other while the city hummed around them. Maya felt like she was at the beginning of something huge and terrifying and wonderful, something that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and her capabilities. Adrian? I'm still keeping the freelance contract, but I want to expand it. Adrian pulled back to look at her. Expand it how? I want to start my own agency, Small at first, focused on authentic, meaningful campaigns for companies that actually care about making a difference. And I want you to be my first official client. Maya, are you sure? Starting your own business is a huge undertaking. I'm terrified, Maya admitted, but I'm also excited. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm capable of something big. You are capable of something big. You're capable of anything you set your mind to. Will you help me? Not financially, she added quickly, but with advice, connections, moral support when I inevitably panic and want to quit. Maya, I will help you build an empire if that's what you want. I don't want an empire. I just want to do work that matters with people I care about. Then that's what we'll build. Maya kissed him again, longer this time, pouring all of her love and hope and determination into the contact. When they broke apart, she was breathless and grinning. So what happens now, she asked. Now you invite me upstairs for terrible coffee and we start planning your world domination. I don't have terrible coffee. I have excellent coffee and a cactus who's been waiting to meet you properly. Lead the way. Maya unlocked her apartment door and led Adrian into her tiny space, watching nervously as he took in her second-hand furniture and eclectic decorations. But when his eyes landed on Spike, sitting proudly on the windowsill, his face broke into a genuine smile. Spike, he said solemnly, approaching the cactus, thank you for bringing your mum and me together. You're talking to my plant, Maya observed. Your plant is an excellent wingman. She deserves recognition. Maya started laughing, the kind of deep, genuine laughter that came from pure happiness. This was her life now, standing in her tiny apartment, watching a billionaire have a conversation with her cactus, planning a business that didn't exist yet, in love with a man who had seen her at her most embarrassing and somehow fallen for her anyway. Adrian. Yeah? He was still examining Spike with scientific interest. I think we're going to be okay. He looked up at her, his eyes warm with love and amusement. Maya, I think we're going to be extraordinary. 6 months later, Maya stood in the sleek conference room of Chen Creative, her own agency in her own office, with her own team of talented designers and strategists. The space was modern and sophisticated, but warm too, with living walls of carefully tended plants and artwork from local artists. So, she said to the room full of potential clients, tell me about your company's story, not your mission statement or your elevator pitch, but your real story. What made you start this business? What keeps you passionate about it? The clients, a sustainable fashion startup looking to expand their market reach, exchanged glances before the founder, a young woman about Maya's age, started talking about her grandmother's sewing circle and how it had inspired her to create beautiful clothes that didn't harm the environment. Maya listened, taking notes and asking questions, building the kind of authentic connection that had become her signature approach. Around the conference table, her team was doing the same. Lisa, who had left her corporate job to become Maya's business partner, Marcus, who had surprised everyone by leaving his position with Adrian to become their operations manager, and 3 other creatives who shared Maya's vision of advertising that actually mattered. Through the glass wall of the conference room, Maya could see Adrian waiting in the reception area, reading a magazine and occasionally glancing up to watch her work. He'd been patient about their busy schedules, understanding about her need to establish her independence, and supportive in ways that went far beyond what she'd expected. I think we can do something really special with your campaign, Maya told the fashion startup founders as the meeting concluded. Lisa will send you our proposal by Friday. After the clients left, Adrian appeared in the doorway of the conference room. How'd it go? Really well. They're exactly the kind of client I love working with, passionate about their product, committed to their values, and willing to take creative risks. Speaking of taking risks, Adrian said, reaching into his jacket pocket, I have something for you. Maya looked up from her notes, curious. What kind of something? The kind of something that's either going to make you very happy or send you running for the hills. Adrian, you're making me nervous. He pulled out a small velvet box and Maya's heart stopped. Maya Chen, you have turned my entire world upside down in the best possible way. You've made me laugh, made me think, made me want to be a better man. You've built something incredible here, something that's uniquely yours, and I am so proud of everything you've accomplished. Adrian, I love you, Maya. I love your ambition, your kindness, your terrible dance moves, and the way you still talk to every plant like it's your best friend. I love that you challenge me, that you keep me grounded, and that you make even the most ordinary moments feel like adventures." He dropped to one knee and Maya's hands flew to her mouth. "Maya Chen, will you marry me?" Maya stared down at him, at the ring sparkling in the velvet box, at the hopeful expression on his face. In the background, she could hear her team trying to pretend they weren't eavesdropping from the reception area. "Are you proposing to me in my conference room?" she asked. "I'm proposing to you in the place where you built your dreams into reality." It seemed appropriate. "Adrian Blackwood, that is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. Is that a yes?" Maya dropped to her knees in front of him, not caring about her business suit or her professional image. "That's a yes, you beautiful, wonderful, plant-appreciating man." Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple, elegant solitaire that was somehow exactly what she would have chosen for herself, and kissed her while their friends and colleagues cheered from the next room. "Mrs. Maya Blackwood," Adrian murmured against her lips. "I like the sound of that." "Mrs. Maya Chen Blackwood," Maya corrected. "I'm keeping my name for business." "Even better." "Adrian." "Yeah?" "I have one condition." "Anything." "Spike gets to be in the wedding." Adrian laughed, the kind of deep, joyful laughter that filled the entire room. "Maya, Spike can be the maid of honor if she wants to be." "She'd like that. She's always been a very supportive friend." "The best wingman I've ever encountered." Maya kissed him again, tasting laughter and love and the promise of a future that was bigger and brighter than anything she'd ever dared to imagine. Around them, her team was still cheering, and somewhere in the distance she could hear Lisa calling her mother with the news. It was perfect, chaotic and loud and completely unprofessional, but perfect. Just like everything else in her wonderfully imperfect life with Adrian Blackwood. A year later, Maya and Adrian stood in the rooftop garden of their new apartment. A beautiful space overlooking the city, filled with carefully tended plants and the kind of peaceful luxury that Maya had once described as authentic experiences. "Ready?" Adrian asked, adjusting his bow tie. "Ready," Maya confirmed, checking her reflection in the glass doors. Her wedding dress was simple and elegant, complemented by a small bouquet that included a tiny succulent, a cutting from Spike, who was indeed serving as an honorary member of the wedding party. They walked downstairs together to the garden, where their friends and family were waiting. Maya's parents were in the front row, her mother crying happy tears while her father beamed with pride. Lisa stood at the altar as maid of honor, grinning so widely her face looked like it might split in half. The ceremony was small and intimate, exactly what they'd both wanted. Maya had written her own vows, promising to love Adrian's ambition, support his dreams, and only occasionally make fun of his extensive skincare routine. Adrian had promised to always trust her completely, to never doubt her capabilities, and to learn the names of all her plants. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant announced, and Adrian didn't need to be told twice. As they kissed, Maya could hear their friends cheering, could smell the flowers from the garden, could feel the warm spring air on her skin. It was one of those perfect moments she talked about in her very first campaign presentation, the kind of memory that would make her smile when she was stuck in traffic 20 years from now. "I love you, Mrs. Chen Blackwood," Adrian whispered as they broke apart. "I love you too, Mr. Blackwood. Though I should warn you, I still trip over flat surfaces. I'm counting on it. Life would be boring if you suddenly became coordinated." Maya laughed, taking his hand as they walked back down the aisle together, past their cheering friends and family, toward whatever adventure was waiting for them next. As they reached the reception area, Maya caught sight of Spike sitting in a place of honor on the gift table, wearing a tiny bow tie that matched Adrian's. The little Cactus looked as stoic and judgmental as ever, but Maya could swear she seemed pleased with how things had turned out. "Thank you, Spike," Maya whispered as they passed, "for being the best wingman a girl could ask for." Behind them, the party was just getting started. There would be dancing, Maya would definitely step on Adrian's feet at least twice, and toasts and cake and all the wonderful chaos that came with celebrating love with the people who mattered most. But for now, Maya was content to stand with her husband in their garden, surrounded by plants and friends, and the promise of a lifetime of adventures together. She'd started this journey as a clumsy girl who carried emergency cacti and walked into glass doors. She was ending it as a successful businesswoman, a loving wife, and a woman who had learned that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the most ordinary disasters. And sometimes, just sometimes, the fairy tale actually comes true. If you enjoyed this story of Maya and Adrian's journey from coffee shop collision to happily ever after, please like and subscribe for more golden lies stories of love, laughter, and the beautiful chaos that happens when ordinary people discover they're capable of extraordinary things.